Hi, Dave here, and today we're going to check out the work of Devin Korwin. He's a concept artist and teacher based in Montreal, Canada. He does have a Gumroad, and I believe he even has like a mentorship thing going on his Gumroad, so I do recommend you check out his store or his Gumroad store. I will be linking all of his links in the description below. And I've kind of taken a look at it, and there are some good reviews on it. So, if you're kind of into the whole mentorship thing, or if you can afford one, I do recommend you check out Devin Korwin's mentorship. So anyway, I do find his work very interesting. He does have like a fine art kind of lean, right? He's not very heavy on the design. He's more of the big picture kind of guy, right? Very, very strong compositions. And I like his sketches, especially just because he doesn't use a lot of like complicated brushes. Sometimes he'll just stick to like a simple round brush, I've noticed, and it actually communicates just as well or even better, right? This one reminds me a bit of John Singer Sargent and even John Park, because I know John Park is one of his favorite artists. I think is John Singer Sargent. Like the way they do the shadows, right? How they're kind of heavy on the shapes. Not super heavy, but I think you'll notice it in the way people do their shadows. Like it's a bit strong, a bit harsh, or a bit compact maybe is the word. And again, if you look at these two paintings, now this one does have a bit of texture, right? It actually looks more like an oil painting to me. But composition wise, it looks pretty cool, right? But this one it's a sketch, but it has a nice kind of view. The composition is pretty interesting, and it kind of makes you think about the place, right? Like this guy is kind of walking along this kind of wall that has some kind of sculpture. Like it makes you think about what's happening, right? And I do love the simplicity of his brushstrokes. It saves time, right? This one reminds me of Craig Mullins a bit, because Craig Mullins has a couple of pieces. Like he has a section on his website where he shows off his sketches, and they're kind of the same thing. But notice how Devin here uses a very solid kind of brush, right? A simple round brush, I'm guessing, right? That doesn't have or hardly has any opacity, right? And maybe a bit of soft brushes here for the shadow and for the highlights, but that's pretty much it. Everything else is kind of just there. It looks very kind of graphical, right? Even this one. I'd expect more like opacity, but he can actually pull off the solid round brush look. There's this, I forgot her name. She did this demo. I'm not sure, was it a Gnomon workshop? It was a chick. It was a redhead chick. She was painting this kind of horse thing, and she did it with a simple round brush without opacity. I think it was just a simple round brush, and I was so impressed by her kind of horse design. Maybe some of you can point that out, but that was so impressive to me. Pretty badass. I can't remember her name, but you can pull it off, going for a more opaque look with a round brush, right? With a solid round brush. Now this one, maybe it has it hardly has any opacity, right? Very, very solid. But it's kind of enough, it's a good sketch to kind of start a conversation, right? Oof. Nice kind of desert here with this kind of broken up car. Look how simple it is, right? Because the focus is more on the composition. They're more like thumbnails, right? It's a great way to save time, and it actually looks kind of good. You can always paint over it eventually and add more detail, but I do like the fact that he emphasizes the composition. Now these are more studies or still life studies of his maybe studio. Right? Again, round brush. Not very complicated brush strokes. Very, very direct. Now this one actually looks more like an oil painting just because there's way more texture, right? Now this one has a very standard kind of composition, like traditional painting composition. It's kind of flat. It's almost flat. There's a bit of perspective, obviously, but it's not like super exaggerated, right? Now there's a bit of opacity, I guess, with this round brush, but again, it gets graphical around the main focus, which is the face. I actually do like this look. It reminds me of some of the pieces of Tobias Kwan. He does have like a couple of pieces very similar to this one where it gets very graphical as you go further out. And he also uses like a simple round brush, I think, for a couple of his pieces. I'm referring to Tobias Kwan. But yeah, round brush reminds me a bit of Li Xingyan. He likes to do like a lot of round brush challenges where he just paints with a simple round brush, and look at how efficient it is. It's kind of like how Feng Zhu sticks to his famous flat brush. It saves time. The less brushes you have, the better. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention this in my last kind of art review. Reviewing the work of Amir Zand. He likes to use a few brushes for his speed paintings. Just a few, like I think 5, like 2 main painting brushes, and then 3 texture brushes that he uses for, adding textures, and sometimes he'll use that same brush for erasing and mixing. So I think that's pretty good. I think Ross Draws also mentioned the same thing, just to kind of limit yourself to 3. Like 1 round brush, 1 hard edged brush, 1 soft brush, and then 1 texture brush. I can't remember the video where Ross Draws talked about that, but yeah. Even this kind of natural tones here, the hues used reminds me a lot of Li Xingyan. The browns and the yellows, right? You can see a bit of hue variety here in the hair, right? The purples, the greens. It doesn't have to be just a solid color, right? Look at how there are grays here in the hair, right? Or they're kind of bluish gray. A bit of purple red, right? Maroon. Not maroon, but kind of purple, violet, red. And even the face has a couple of subtle hues. And look at how it gets kind of messier or more raw as you go further down, right? Even the hair isn't fully refined, right? You don't need much to make it kind of understandable. Oof. Now she's kind of cute. Pretty. Right? Round brush. Right? Nice shadow there. He could have used like a soft brush for the edge, but he kind of just did like a couple of brush strokes. Maybe he did like erase the edges. Maybe he did this in a new layer, who knows? Or maybe he used the mixer brush. Hard to say, but look at the greens, the yellows, the greens, the reds, right? It's not just one flat hue. Pretty. Right? I love the background. It's just kept simple, right? Now this one does feel like an actual oil painting. I'm not sure how he did this carpet thing, or the textures in the back of the wall. Fuck. Craig Mullins has a couple of pieces like this where it's a bit rougher, more textured, right? Same thing goes for this guy. Again, look at the composition. The way it's framed, it's very kind of classical-esque, right? Fine arty. Ew! Right? So this one he's using a round, a bit of texture, some texture, but he likes to go for that round brush. Again, it's not like even the way he does the face or does the shadows, right, with that round brush. Look at how this edge of the shadow becomes kind of light. That happens often when you're kind of in the edge of shadow, in the edge of like shadows, right? Where it gets kind of lighter. I think that's pretty cool. Now this one's more sad, more textured but sad. There's an artist, a traditional painter, where he's not as textured, but he paints like a lot of sad, like not sad, but kind of mundane, lonely pieces, kind of like this one, except with less texture, Can't remember his name, but I do like this one. The way the form of the face is kind of suggested with the shadows. Right? Damn. And look at how the hues are kind of spread out. You could even see some yellows, some reds, some browns, right? It's not just like a graphical thing, right? It's kind of spread around slightly, but it's not like super strong. A bit of hue variety is there, but not too much. Some Egyptian stuff here. Sketches, right? Look at how rough this sketch is. That's a great thumbnail right there, right? You can say so much with thumbnails. This is often something that I'm, that I tend to avoid just because I feel like it's time wasted, but it isn't. It's a great way to explore ideas quickly, right? So you actually know what to invest in. Because sometimes it's nice to, sometimes it works where you kind of figure out the painting as you go, but sometimes it's great to figure it out in the thumbnail phase, right? I think it's important to be flexible, right? And this one's pretty cool. Look at how the bottom parts here are just kind of suggested. You didn't have to paint the whole thing, right? I'm not sure what kind of architecture is this. Reminds me of a theater in Europe. Fuck. The one with the green top. It's hard to, I can't recall. Oh. Anyway. Now I'm not sure what this thing is. It could be like some kind of ship. Submarine perhaps. Now this one's too rough. Now this one it's more of a thumbnail for Devin than for everyone, just because it's hard to understand, right? There are thumbnails for you where it kind of makes sense for you, and there are thumbnails like this where it does make a bit more sense, right? Like this, like this. Now this one's it's too vague, but it probably works for Devin. Nice snow. Nice babe. I'm assuming it's a girl. Please be a girl. Hopefully. Again, round brush, very very opaque. Look at how we did the ornaments here. A simple round brush with some brush spacing. Even the texture here, or the patterns of. I'm assuming her attire. Please be. I hope it's a her. Just round brushes, with some spacing, right? Very very solid. A bit of mixer brush, I'm guessing here, or a soft brush perhaps, right? Very very simple way of painting, but it looks good just because the proportions are there. The edge control is pretty, defined, especially in the eyes, right? Awesome. Could be some kind of belly dancer, hard to say. It's a bit rough, but you can tell. It's some kind of Eastern European, maybe, or Arabian chick. She's kind of pale though. It's not bad, but it's like vampire-ish. Now her lips are pretty big here, which I'm not a fan of. Unless they're kind of luscious, but it's hard to say. It is a sketch, so whatever. But again, look at the brush strokes. Very very simple. Look at that round brush. Not very complicated. Not very complicated. They are sketches after all, so they don't need brush variety. That's kind of my thing, because I'm really into the whole impressionistic kind of thing, or it's impressionistic plus mixed media kind of look. So sometimes I kind of overdo it whenever I do my sketches, and it's kind of a waste of time, right? I can always do that and add more brush variety after, right? Great study here, right? Nice back. Just kind of fit, right? This one's pretty rough, but again, round brush. A bit of texture, not really. I think it's a grass brush even. Hard to say. Oh, we have a turtle. Look at how he was able to suggest a turtle with a simple round brush, right? Very very interesting. It's a great way to practice sometimes, to just use the round brush, because it helps you to kind of simplify things. You don't have to, it's not like a requirement, but sometimes it's actually fun. Now here he does have a bit of opacity whenever he's using the round brush, so yeah, right? Again, look at the composition, diagonal thing going on here. He split the 1x1 kind of frame into two. Yeah, I'm guessing this is some kind of study of a painting, or maybe a statue, who knows, maybe a painting, or maybe a personal kind of creation. But again, look at the round brush use. Not a lot of complicated brush strokes, very very direct way of painting, right? And the darks and the lights are very clearly kind of set, right? The edges are kind of clear, right? I love the suggestion of the head here, right? It gets rougher as you go down. I think it started out with like a black, like a line sketch, like an outline at the very least, and then he just started painting over it, probably on the same layer. It's a boss move. Oh, great shoulder study. Look at the clavicle here. Shit. Or no, it's a it is the clavicle, and you can see like the traps here. Right, the shoulder. Oh, that is so sexy. Look at that. Look at the anatomy. Look at the pectoralis. Fuck-ish, right? And again, check it out. Round brush, right? You don't need to be super, especially when you're trying to design something. He's kind of like Anthony Jones, and I do appreciate that, where they're more focused on the design, because you can always kind of be flamboyant in the end. But when you're trying to come up with a concept, I think it's important to really simplify your process and not focus too much on the artistry, but rather the design. Even when it comes to like compositions, not just anatomy, but compositions in general, I think it's better to just simplify your brush set and use maybe a simple square round brush to just kind of establish the major negative and positive spaces and such, right? Again, the edge control, amazing, right? And you can see the way he builds up the paint. Some parts are kind of opaque, and some parts you can see him kind of build up the paint. Now, I'm not sure how he softened this area right here. Maybe he did use a mixer brush or maybe a soft brush. Who knows? I love the core shadow here, right? You can even see the reflected lighting here. Very, very sexy. Am I right? I'm right. Very, very traditional looking. Reminds me a bit of Amber Ye and Wang Ji Li. When it comes to the hue variety in these two pieces, like there's way more variety in each kind of major silhouette, right? And way more texture. Oh, I love the lighting here. She's kind of in shadow, and then you can see like, oh, look at the way the feet is done. You can see the red, and this one is a bit too strong, but I kind of get it, you know? Maybe the toes should have been the reddest, but it's kind of going into like the actual sole of the foot, so maybe it's too strong, but I kind of get it, you know? I love the way the lighting kind of cuts off here because of the window. Looks very Arabian-ish, right? Middle Eastern, kind of Iranian, right? Persian. You're seeing this from the top. Standard composition, not too complicated. Ooh, nice columns here. And again, look at the there's a bit of texture, but you can still see the simplification in terms of the way it's painted. Just a simple round brush for the most part, with a bit of texture, right? And I'm guessing you just copy these again and again, because you don't need to paint it again and again, you know? You can just save, you can actually save time and actually use Photoshop, or Photoshop's perks, right? A bit of texture here in the grass. Maybe he did get it from some kind of photo texture, but with the way he painted the figures here, simple round brush, right? And most of his shots are kind of one by one, right? I've seen a lot of oil painters kind of do this sort of thing, where they do studies in a one by one kind of ratio, and they often they obviously paint in a very small kind of canvas, and it's usually kind of cute when they paint like that, because it's, you know, you'd expect them to paint in a big canvas, but then again, it is a study, so you know, looks very Mona Lisa-ish. Right? A bit of texture here with the brush. You can see the brush spacing. A bit of texture here for the hair. Even in the background, it's a bit kind of, it's still kind of graphical, but an abstract-ish, right? But yeah, great way of indicating the shadow here, right? Just to suggest the form of the face, right? It's still rather flat, but you know, it works. Fuck it. We have like a some kind of cave mining area, right? Again, round brush. It's very, very opaque. A bit of texture in the beginning. maybe to kind of lay in some of the main hues, right? I'm guessing this could be some kind of market. People just chilling, right? Maybe having a picnic, maybe selling some jewelry or something, right? That's the feeling I get with this sort of thing. And it does look kind of Middle Eastern, so maybe this is kind of a focused yeah, anyway. Nice babe. Oh, I love the redness of the nose and the eyes. Maybe she just kind of cried. Oh, I love the blues here, right? Look at the emotion of the face. Very, very artsy, right? Very subtle kind of expression, but shit. Round brush, heavy on the opacity side. So it's kind of building up the paint stroke by stroke and not going for a very opaque look. Maybe in the background it's kind of there, that opaqueness, but not really. Anyway. Oh, a bit of texture. It's way more refined, way more sharp, right? It looks like an oil painting. Same thing for this guy. Look at the way he was able to suggest the facial structure with the shadows, right? Ooh. There's a complementary thing going on here. The reds and the greens, or the purples and the greens, the warms and the cools, right? Now this one is actually a bit impressionistic, right? Right? But although this one is a bit tight, right? It's a bit more developed, I would say. Now this guy's a very, very big crotch area, so size doesn't matter. Maybe a bit. Oh, texture. Great pattern here. I'm not sure how he did it. Maybe he just painted it like a boss, right? It looks rather traditional, I might say. Oh, he used Photoshop, so these could be studies, maybe. Fuck. But these ones are a bit too fine, and the composition is kind of you know, I'm not really into this sort of shot. It's too artsy for me. This one's kind of okay, right? This one and this one, because at least even though the shot is kind of simple, I can see the environment and I can kind of put myself in it. Whenever I see these sorts of things, it's too. Maybe this one's kind of okay. Oh shit, this one's kind of okay, but this one is better, right? Again, simple brushes, a bit of texture, a bit of brush variety in some areas, but it's mostly kind of solid. Not a lot of. It's not heavy on the texture. A bit here and there, but not really. Very, very simple kind of brush set. I love the way the dome was done here. I believe this is a courtyard of some kind of mosque. Yeah. Because you can tell by the dome design here, right? And the archways. Some kind of guard. This one does really remind me of Craig Mullins, right? I think you can see it as well. I love the kind of areas of light here, because obviously this guy's kind of being. He's in shadow because of this kind of column here, right? Oh, this one's a bit opaque. I love the way the folds were done for this kind of a hood, for this kind of priest. I think it's some kind of priest, right? A bit of texture in the ground, suggestion of the bricks in the back with a couple of round brush kind of strokes here and there. And look at how the hues are kind of, they're under the same family, but yeah. Even in the shadows, you can tell there's a bit of green in it, right? A bit of yellow, right? Look at how this column right here wasn't even completed because it's in shadow, I'm assuming. Whoa. And you can tell by the edge of it, by this part, because the wall here in the back is kind of being shown. So you can kind of see the suggestion of the edge of this column. Whoa, right? Some reflected lighting in the bottom of the capital, because this part is the capital of the column, right? You can see some browns. Whoa. Am I right? And look at the hue variety. You can see some pinks here. Oof, some greens and pinks, right? Some greens. It's kind of evened out, right? This part right here is a bit too white for me. Racist, right? I think it's too strong, or maybe not. I love the way he was able to suggest the face in this level, like it's a pretty small figure, but the face is kind of a bit refined in a way. Like the edge control is pretty on point, right? And this one's too refined for me. It's almost like a fucking photograph with some kind of filter. Like the lighting is just too good, right? And it's too intimidating. Right. Oh, wonderful design, right? Could this be his own design, or maybe it's some kind of study? Hard to say. Yeah. Pretty sharp details though. I think he uses some kind of repeating pattern here, because painting everything is kind of. I'm pretty sure he just copy pasted. Like he probably painted one area and just kind of copy pasted it. But look at the edge control, right? It's not super clean, but it's fairly kind of solid, right? Look at the way the edges of the shadow was done, right? It's not like it's not a sharp kind of transition. There is kind of this liminal area, right? Ooh. Look at the way the shadows were done for this kind of rings here. You can even see the edge of the rings here on top, right? Oof. Wow. Wow. Design. Very, very nice draper here of the folds. Very, very cultured looking people, right? These are probably some kind of monks thinking about, oh, this is a solid, awesome rough sketch, right? And then this is what I usually like to look at just because it looks cool. And then he went further and defined it, right? Now this one's too sharp for me and kind of intimidating, but yes, right? Well done with the shadows here of this kind of person and this person and this person, right? Oof. Damn. And the colors, he's not very saturated kind of guy, where he likes to look kind of it's pretty toned down. Lots of daylight stuff, I think. And this is pretty cool. It's an unfinished thing, but I actually like this kind of look where it's not fully finished, right? This could actually be like this could be sold as a print for me. Let's check the other paintings here. Rough sketch with the round brush. Same thing for this guy. It's more of a cowboy western setting. Yeehaw! Wow, wow, west, right? This one is, I think, this could be like the cover or the thumbnail for the video. I think maybe, just because there's a mix of that sketchiness here, and you can see where he can actually refine things a bit more, right? So these are some kind of soldiers, perhaps, and maybe some kind of monk. Maybe again, round brush. A bit of softness involved, could be a mixer brush or a simple soft brush. It gets graphical in the back. Very, very straightforward, right? Straightforward, excuse me, right? Ew. More work in progress stuff for whips and sketches, right? So these guys are in some kind of desert, probably exploring the Arabian kind of scene. Oh, I love the shadow here and this kind of bit of light. Now this one's a bit saturated, you know. So maybe the face is painted with blood. Hard to say. Ooh, very, very interesting looking fella. Very, very analogous. And is analogous a word or monochromatic? Fuck. Ooh, again, look at the simplicity of this scene, right? Not a lot of brush variety, very, very simple brush strokes or brushes being used here. A bit of texture, very, very slight, almost unnoticeable because there's hardly any, right? But the shadows are very clear. The shape of the shadows are clear. The shapes of the areas and lines are pretty clear, especially for this statue and then maybe this person right here, right? It's a solid sketch, am I right? Or am I right? So we have here a bit of a shark scene. Dun-dun, 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 dun-dun. So a dog study, Looks very Egyptian-ish, like Anubis. This one's kind of a boat design. Reminds me of one of the pieces of Victor Hugo Harmatiuk. He's a Brazilian concept artist. He has like a personal project where he has a similar kind of ship design, right? So anyway, that's it for this review of Devin Korwin. He's a concept artist / teacher. You could check out his mentorship on his Gumroad. So just check out the links in the description below. And yeah, keep drawing, keep painting, and stay free.